Well, good morning, everybody. Jeff from Rust Bucket Valley Garage. We have a new project to take and work on today. This is a RAV4 Toyota, and the water pump that lives down behind this cover here, this one here, is leaking. So we're going to go ahead and put a water pump on there. And this customer has bought all the parts, and they hooked us up pretty well. So they also want us to take and do a cam belt. Since we got everything tore up anyway, we might as well, because it'll be a really easy job to do. So I would say that the first thing we're going to do is drain the radiator and get that out of the way so we have some working room. However, when we were pulling the car into the work area, we noticed that we have a code. So the mill light is on, so we need to take and find out what that is. So we'll go ahead and read the codes on there and find out what's going on. So it'll be stored codes. And let's see here. I want you to take and go down to the specific one. So we'll be going down to Toyota. Okay. This one right here says that is a P1133, air fuel sensor circuit response malfunction. So we're going to have to take and look that up and find out what that is. Whenever you have a vehicle come in and you're going to be doing some work on it, you want to make sure that you don't exacerbate whatever it is that's going on. So you want to take and check the codes first if the mill light is on. So since air fuel sensor doesn't really have anything to do with what we're going to be doing with the water pump, we'll go ahead and continue on. So first thing we're going to do is take and go and get some clearance in here, take and drain the radiator, get the hoses off, get the fan belts off, get the fan off, and all that kind of stuff. All right. Okay, so you can see we have the radiator and fan shroud out, and we have the fan out, and we have the cover for the cam belt, and we also have the pulleys off. Okay, so they have kind of this is not the water pump right here. So the water pump is actually right here. So this is a cam belt. So there's multiple belts on these things, and there's not much difference in their length. So what we've done is we put a piece of tape on them to show which order they go in. So number one would be on the first pulley here. This will be the second one, which picks up the air conditioning, which is right here. There's a tensioner down underneath here that you loosen up the idler pulley, and then there's a bolt in there, 14 millimeter, that you unscrew it, and then it allows the tension on that belt to take and come off. Okay, so these two belts are about ready to take and come off. So the next thing that we're going to be doing is we're going to be pulling the harmonic balancer off. So there is a 19 millimeter bolt in that. So we needed to take and pull the radiator out because we needed room for the impact wrench to take in and get that out, because it's torqued in there pretty well. So as soon as we take and get that out, then we'll get the the rest of the timing bolt cover off, and we'll probably be able to get the water pump too at that point. So the customer has bought another water pump as well as the timing belt. So we'll take and get those changed out. And there's also, he got a seal for the timing belt cover, which is behind the harmonic balancer, which is right here. So we're going to be extracting that seal out of the cover, putting a new one in there, and so there won't be any leaks from there. This thing has been leaking for a little while. The bottom of the engine is very, very dirty, so I think we're going to steam clean that. And so as you can see, you got to keep a pan down underneath there because the engine is still dropping coolant. So since we have animals around here, we don't want them getting anywhere near that. Any kind of antifreeze is toxic to animals. So we don't let them anywhere near that because we love our pets. But let's continue on. Let's get that harmonic balancer off there. Okay, so this is where we are right now. We have removed the harmonic balancer. This guy right here. There is a 19 millimeter bolt that goes through the center of it, and looks just like this. What we did is we put a strap wrench on the outside of this to jam it so the engine would not turn, and then this right here is really torqued on there, so we tried it with an impact wrench and it wouldn't come loose. So we used a 1/2-inch drive ratchet with a big cheater pipe and got that loose, and this thing just came off, no puller required. Okay, and then we took the rest of the bolts out of the lower cover, which looks just like this. Okay, there is a seal on here, and the seal has been leaking, so we're going to replace all the seals, of course. But as we're coming apart, we are looking for things that were wrong. It's really been leaking oil out of here, so we want to make sure we take and seal that real well. Okay, that is the upper belt cover. So the next thing that we have to do is we have to take and unleash this tensioner right here. Okay, there is a tensioner mechanism that is just below this. Let me show you what the new one looks like. So this is what the tensioner mechanism looks like. This is a new one. You notice it's got a pin in it. Okay, so after you take and get it installed in there, you take and everything's lined up the way, and then there is a big old spring inside of here. Okay, so you don't want to be fighting that, so you want to have everything lined up before you take and pull that pin. And then, so they've opted to give me a whole bag of parts on this thing. So in addition to a water pump, we got this pulley here, we got this pulley mechanism here, and we got the tensioner and the water pump, and belts, gaskets, seals. We got cam seals go behind here. The ones in here are not leaking, by the way. But to take and get at the bolts at this tensioner right here, there's one here and there's one in back. There is the AC pump that is in the way. So there are 4 12 millimeter bolts holding that in, and then there is a bracket. And let me show you what that looks like. This bracket right here, this side is against the engine. It has the tensioner for the air conditioning pump belt on it. So there are 4 14 millimeter bolts that are really in there. There's actually an easier way to take and get this. What you can do is go ahead and use a 14 millimeter deep socket, and then with your ratchet, use a 1-inch piece of copper pipe that I use as a cheater which is this one right here. So it has one end that's flattened out for wrenches, and then the other end is for ratchets. So you can go ahead and use this to take and get those bolts out. So we're keeping separate bolt bins. We have one bolt bin for the upper stuff, and then we have another bolt bin for the lower stuff. So we just use fruit cans or bean cans or whatever to take and hold it. So the next thing we're going to be doing is taking out these two bolts here that are in the tensioner that will go ahead and release the tension on the cam belt. So we already have timing marks that we've established. If you can see right here, timing mark right here, and we have a strike on the case on the left cam, and we also have the timing mark here, and we have a strike on the case on the right side. Okay, and the crank is the keyway is up. So you know, we don't want anything to get out of time. I don't remember if this is a zero clearance engine. What a zero clearance engine is if something were to happen to the cam belt and it breaks and one of the valves is hanging open, if it's a zero clearance engine, that means that the piston will come in contact with the valve and destroy your engine for you. So you really don't want that to happen. Nasty little bit of business there. So what you can do is just do it right the first time. So anyway, once we take and get that tensioner off down there, then we can complete the disassembly of this, and then we can start putting the new parts on. So when we go into one of these jobs, we always want to find out what went wrong. This one had a bad water pump leak, and that was the only thing that was going on. And the customer bought all the parts and everything. So we have everything disassembled, and we're looking at each thing. So what we did is, since the water pump was leaking, we would generally expect to see a weeping in the weep holes that's on the water pump shaft, and let me show you where those are located. So this is the new water pump, and this is a weep hole right here. When the front bearing seal goes, it generally starts leaking from there. This one here was a little bit different. Let me show you the old pump that we took off. So this is the old pump. A couple of things went wrong. First off, this is a wrong gasket on here. Okay, this is a cheap water pump. They used a regular mineral-based gasket material, and you can't use that on these, because what happens is with the coolant and the pressure and the heat and everything, the water and the coolant start infiltrating through the layers of this gasket, and it starts leaking, and that's what happened all around here and down here. So that's a reason that it was leaking. The weep hole on the shaft seal on this is dry. Okay, so this was actually the problem, that it was a bad seal. The cleanup job that was performed on the engine block when this is not a factory pump, so the cleanup job that was performed on the engine block was unsatisfactory. So we just spent probably about 25 minutes, I guess. We still have a little material on here. We have to clean this off, then we have to hit it with the air hose, and then we have to do a final check. There is a hose right here that goes on to the side of the water pump, and that's probably for the heater. And the clamp on that was bad also. So you know, we may have gotten a little bit of leakage from there, but most of it was coming in this area here. All right. So we'll continue to take and clean this up, and we already have a new bearing here installed, and you notice I'm not touching the bearing surface to take and point. I'm touching the edge because I have schmutz on my gloves and I don't want that going on the brand new cam belt. Okay, so you got to keep everything real clean. What we're going to do is we're going to do an inspection of the cam gears and make sure everything is clean on them. When we hit it with the air hose, it probably ought to take and clean off most of whatever it is on there. Okay, but we're going to go ahead and clean this up the rest of the way, and then we're going to start reassembling the water pump on here. So these are all the parts that we replaced on it. We replaced the belts and the water pump, these hose clamps. When you squeeze them all the way together, they still won't release the hose, so something going on with them. Replace the thermostat, which is right here, the idler pulley right here, and the fan belts, of course. We got it all back together. We got the engine running right now. It's idling. We filled the radiator up with water, and we're going to be draining that out. And we just wanted to check for leaks and see if there were any. We don't want to take and drop antifreeze on the ground. It's expensive and it's hazardous. So we'll be draining that water out and filling it up with antifreeze. Couple of things that we did. We changed out these the hose clamps, both upper and lower. We also changed all the belts. The one thing we had the most problem with is to get the cam tensioner out, and it lives right down here on the bottom of the engine. To get that out, you have to pull the air conditioning pump off and the bracket off, and then that comes off, and then you can release the tension on the roller, and then you take the bolt out with a 10mm internal wrench, and then go ahead and pull that off. All in all, this job was 8 hours. So they're going to be getting the bill for 8 hours. The code that we saw, there's a couple of things that it could be. Some of the things it could be is bad O2 sensor. We looked at the O2 sensors, and for the non-California O2 sensors, they're running about $100 a copy. For the California ones, they are $200. So it's just a little bit of steam coming off the radiator because we overfilled it. So no, it's not on fire. It could be a vacuum leak. So we found this vacuum hose right here split from one end to the other, so we went ahead and replaced that. We also went and serviced the battery while we're here, and so we had to unfortunately take the battery terminal off, so that reset the ECM, so the code no longer exists, so we can't really troubleshoot that. But we can go in and look at the performance data of the O2 sensors. They're actually looking pretty good, so possibly the vacuum leak was the problem. So you ought to try for the easiest and cheapest things first. So anyway, hopefully I've given you some good information. This was not that hard of a job. Just watch the setup on your timing marks. There's 3 timing marks, one in each cam, one in the crank. Make sure they don't move. When you take the old belt off, put the new belt on. That's the most important thing. When this thing started up, it came on high idle, and I mean like 3,500 RPM. and it did that for a minute or so, and then it went ahead and calmed back down, and it's idling right now at about 750 RPM. So thought we might have had another problem, but it's just a cold-blooded engine. So this is a 3.4, so Toyota RAV4. So anyway, hope I've given you some good information. You can take and do this job, and not that bad. Okay, the biggest thing would probably be the parts. Parts are always expensive. Labor's really expensive. So if you can take and go into the dealership for this job, this would probably be about an $1,800 to $2,000 job, and our shop costs are nowhere near that. So anyway, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. I'm going to deliver this back to the customer, and you may or may not see it again. Hope I don't, but next time I see it, it should be for maintenance. All right? Hope you have a wonderful afternoon. See you next time.